Attention shoppers, clean up on aisle 14. Clean up on aisle 14. Someone dropped a jar of pickles. Kosher pickles.
Beatboxing at a big box store. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
A red minivan has the lights on in the parking lot.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Geico.
And now, Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN Radio.
When I pop the trunk, head the dirt. Y'all pop the trunk, I pop the hood.
Now act stupid, I'll pop the trunk. Now give me a boom.
He is Jalen Rose.
What up, dope?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in, center stage on the mic.
And we putting it on wax. It's the new style.
We're Jalen Jacoby on ESPN 2 and ESPN Podcast. What do we do?
We get the people what they want.
First, I want to give a shout out to Reggie. He's out sick today. We got Brad on the ones and twos. Jalen, the people got what they wanted last night when they tuned into the Super Bowl. Very simple question for you, Mr. Rose. Was that the greatest Super Bowl that you have ever seen?
Absolutely. No question about it. And I think it actually saved the NFL season. There was so much talk about things that took place on the field, like the concussion issues, whether some's a catch or not. Off the field, the opioids, obviously the protest that was led initially by Colin Kaepernick, the president tweeting about the National Football League. And all of a sudden, it culminates into the greatest quarterback and coach of all time making it to the Super Bowl in the New England Patriots, a dynasty, and an upstart team in the Philadelphia Eagles led by a backup quarterback who, in this game, caught a touchdown pass. Just think about this. He was a tight end in high school. They just put the play in a month or so ago. They're fourth down in goal line territory right before the half. They understand that the Patriots are going to get the ball in the second half, and Doug Peterson had the audacity to call this, and it actually worked.
I loved it. It was the most yards in a game. It was just so fantastic back and forth. The actual game on the field. And one thing I love that you mentioned is you mentioned the problems that the NFL had, and you mentioned concussions and the catch rule. Guess what? We had a concussion that greatly impacted the game. We had two plays that came down to touchdowns, not just catches. Was it a catch? Wasn't a catch? But the quality of the play, the entertainment, the going back and forth, the Brady versus Foles, the trading shots. It was so good that didn't bog down the enjoyment of watching it. Like, I, like you, did walk away from this game being like, you know what? I love football, and that's why I love football, because anything could happen. And be honest with me, Jalen Rose, when your man, Detroit's own Brandon Graham, got the strip sack, and then the Eagles got the ball back, you're like, oh, this is over. But then they kick a field goal, and Tom Brady gets the ball with like one timeout and a minute and 5 seconds. Or no timeouts in 40 seconds. You still thought there was a chance that he was going to win that game, didn't you?
I was the individual on this program that picked the Eagles to fly, Eagles, fly. So there wasn't a time in the back and forth battle that I felt they would lose.
Oh, really?
But again, there was so many great things about this Eagles team all season. And I said it early in the year after they played Carolina. I was like, Philadelphia is the most complete team in football. They have tall receivers that can go across the middle, yet go deep. They have two terrific tight ends. They have multiple backs. And so this is a team that also on the defensive side of football had an amazing front seven. Their offensive line won Lion of the Year in the entire league. So to plug Foles in and for him to be able to quarterback the way he did in the playoffs was just terrific. And for him to win Super Bowl MVP was magnificent.
It was one of those games from Nick Foles that you talk about more in basketball than you do football, where he was like in the zone. He wasn't just like Tom Brady had wide open receivers. Nick Foles had tight little windows where he had to put the ball. Nick Foles had RPO reads that he had to make perfect. Nick Foles executed so well. He was just had one of those games. One of those games that will just explode him into history in Philadelphia. Nick Foles will be celebrating Philadelphia forever. And you forget that he was on the Eagles 3 years ago. Like he was an Eagle, and then he was contemplating retirement, and now he is back, and now he's a Philadelphia legend. The storylines on this were just so good, but one thing I do want to mention is you talked about Jeffrey, and Jeffrey started off so hot. He had a great touchdown catch. Even the Patriots' interception was almost a miracle catch from Jeffrey. They switched Gilmore onto him, and Gilmore pretty much shut him down, but everybody else got hot. Why? Because Malcolm Butler was on the sidelines. It's a lot of mystery about why, but Malcolm Butler played 98% of the defensive snaps for the Patriots through the season, yet right before the Super Bowl, he was told he would not be starting. He wasn't injured. He did play special teams. What happened there?
It's one of those things, and you saw this take place with Alabama in a national championship game, which, by the way, for whatever it's worth, the years that Alabama win the championship, the Patriots don't win the Super Bowl. When you make a change at half at quarterback and you bring in a freshman, people are like, this better work. And then all of a sudden they win the national championship when one freshman throws a long bomb to the other, and you're like, that's Nick Saban.
Nick Saban's a genius. Nick Saban is a genius, yep.
And so this is the exact same thing with Bill Belichick. You have a Super Bowl champion that saved the football game with an interception on the goal line versus the Seattle Seahawks and Malcolm Butler. A historic play. For him not to play in that football game on the defensive side, I know he competed on special teams, let me know that there's something behind the curtain that he probably didn't get accomplished. And so the team was like, you know what? We're going to do what we always do. We got to reprimand the player, understand that we stand with the system. It may cost us on the defensive side. It may even cost us the game. But this is why we are who we are, because we stick to our principles. It was great. It was great psychological warfare, because when he picked off the Super Bowl interception against Seattle, a lot of people don't realize he wasn't playing a lot in that game.
No, he wasn't playing a lot that season. No, not at all. It came out of nowhere.
I'm watching the game like, maybe they might put him in.
Maybe Eric Rowe is going to be the next Malcolm Butler. Like, maybe that's what it is. But the thing is like, why make this decision so close to game time? Because if I'm Rowe, I want to know if I'm starting in the Super Bowl. I don't want to wake up that morning and then find out I'm starting in the Super Bowl later. It was just baffling to me, and I think that there'll be more and more will leak out over time about this. There's already been some Instagram back and forth, and Browner and Hightower. Like, I think that over the next few days, we'll hear more and more about Malcolm Butler and why he didn't play. And some tells me he will not be in a Patriot uniform next year. Just a hunch out there. But Jalen, there's so much to discuss in this game. But one thing I do want to bring up to you, Mr. Rose, is not a lot of defense played. You know, we talked about Matt Patricia and his pencil, and we talked about you talked about the Eagles being a complete team. Both teams in the Super Bowl looked like half of a team because there was no defense. What do you think led to that?
This is what I love about sports, is because we constantly build up these storylines that become generalizations that people just follow. And so it's like it's a quarterback-driven league. You can't win without a superstar quarterback. And then Nick Foles win Super Bowl MVP. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the New England Patriots, top-level defenses in the game.
Defense
they
wins
all
championships.
Get shredded in the big game,
yep.
Including the Minnesota Vikings. This also happened with them. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, no way with a couple of weeks to prepare. They're going to lose to the Eagles when they're quarterbacking with Nick Foles. Oh, man, they're going to have the answers to the test before the game starts.
I think that's a direct quote from me, actually. I think that's literally what I said word for word last Friday.
Correct. And so as all of these things play out, the beauty of sports is then the game starts. And how about this? Usually when a quarterback leads the league in passing or wins MVP, they don't win the Super Bowl. These are two things that happen also with Tom Brady, who, by the way, had an opportunity to catch a big first down pass. And you can say this about Belichick also. Same with the Malcolm Butler. Some may say you know his hand is injured. Why is you throwing him the ball? Then other people will say, the other team knows his hand is injured. That's why you do throw him the ball. The bottom line, Tom knows this. Got to catch the football.
I will say two things that Tom Brady did in the first half that had more impact on this game than people are giving it. One, he made a complete pass to Amendola early in the game on their first or second drive, but Amendola was so wide open that was almost a guaranteed touchdown if Tom Brady threw an accurate pass. He threw it behind him. Amendola had to wait. They ended up not scoring on that drive because of a botched hold. Second, the play that you mentioned, Tom Brady, that's a catchable pass. That's a catchable pass. He lofted it out there. Sure, maybe you had to reach out a little bit over your shoulder, but that is a very catchable pass. And those two mistakes from Tom Brady, I believe, cost the Patriots the game, even though they happened in the first half. There's so much to break down from this entertaining, excellent Super Bowl. We'll continue to do so right after this. Jalen Rose, was it a catch? Wasn't it a catch? There were two controversial touchdowns in this entertaining and exciting and epic Super Bowl. What did you think of those two plays?
I've been one of the people that have stood on the table about this rule because it initially started with Calvin Johnson of my Detroit Lions catching a touchdown allegedly at the end of the end zone, holding it with one hand, the football, and putting it on the ground. And I felt, even as a Lions fan, that it wasn't a touchdown. Okay. Same thing with Dez Bryant at Green Bay, diving catch. Remember. I felt like it was not a touchdown. And so I had this conversation with Hall of Famer Chris Carter, and all he does is catch touchdowns. And he actually agreed with me. It's not a catch if you can't get up and hand the official the football. That's a catch. So I understand that a lot of people don't like the new rule, and I saw Roger Goodell come out and talk about that they may experiment with the rule. Clemens catch, Ertz catch, both touchdowns. I like the way they were called. I like the way they were handled in the big game.
When you started your answer, I thought you were going a different way. I totally agree. Even as someone who picked and rooted for the Patriots, I thought those were both touchdowns. Clemens had possession, just recalibrated the ball in his hand so he could catch it through the ground. Ertz was clearly established himself as a catch. He caught the ball, he possessed the ball, he was running, and then he crossed the goal line. I thought those were perfect. Another thing I noticed during the game, which was also perfect, was Gisele Bündchen. When they went to cutaways of her, she was parenting, she was happy, and she also had what, Mr. Rose?
She had an adult beverage, a glass of red wine. A glass
of red wine. And
I was jealous, because that's exactly how I like it. No stem, filled to the top.
Exactly. I like that too. And I will say this, Beyonce brought a juice box for her daughter to the Grammys, and Gisele brought red wine for herself to the Super Bowl. Both totally acceptable parenting strategies that I fully support.
And also, what gets lost as we salute power couples frequently on this show, I have to say this. Gisele is ride or die.
Yes.
People need to start paying attention. She makes sure she posts consistently and reps her guy. Mm-hmm. The day before the Super Bowl, brought the entire family, took a picture on the field after practice with Tom, was there to support him. Oh, man, they're extreme power couple. I'm a big fan of theirs.
Obviously, what happened on the field was so exciting. And then after the game was won, we all turned our eyes to the streets of Philadelphia. Tens, hundreds of thousands of people flooded the streets, lit fires, climbed poles, crushed awnings, and generally were just happy. Jalen, why do people get so crazy and destroy things after their team wins championships?
This is really simple, and cities and states and provinces, law enforcement, media should all understand this is going to happen. This gets discussed usually when there's some sort of controversy that's taking place. Yep. And then also, all of a sudden, it becomes hostility, because this is the reason. There's so many people, there's so much emotion, and after a football game, there's so much drugs and alcohol probably in so many individuals.
No.
When you have so many hundreds and thousands of people, how do certain people react? How do certain people react once they start to be inebriated? Some people get relaxed. Some people get fun. Some people get wild. Some people get angry and hostile and mean. And you don't think breaking the Macy's window is something you shouldn't be doing. But in a celebratory mood, you like, hey, watch this. Yay! Yay! We did
Let's flip over
We
a car
did it.
because the Eagles won a football game. Some people, however, express never-ending love. Like this gentleman who got down on one knee in the middle of it all and proposed to this young lady who's holding 8-ball. Good old 40 of Old English, Old Gold. My question for you is, do you think they knew each other before the celebration, or did he see an Eagles fan holding a 40 of Old English and say, I must spend my life with that woman?
It's almost like you're watching the theme of your life play out in front of you.
Okay, I like
and
where you're
Martin
going.
Scorsese is on the score. And all of a sudden, I've waited my entire life for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. And all of a sudden, I see the woman of my dreams.
There she is.
Not because of how much money she makes.
Nope.
Not because of how she looks.
Nope.
Not because of anything else except she loves sports and she's holding a 40 ounce.
That's all it takes.
I'm in love.
I've been carrying a ring around in my pocket for my entire life, just in case I ran into an Eagles fan with a 40 of OE, and there she is. Someone who probably, I don't know, maybe had one or two adult beverages before and during the game was our guy, Kevin Hart. He's trying to talk his way onto the stage for the Vince Lombardi Trophy presentation. Nick Foles is still trying to get in the stage, yet Kevin Hart is trying to talk his way in. What do you think Mr. Hart was thinking at this moment?
I don't want to throw any shots at individuals that are Dutch, but one of the funniest things he said about fat kangaroo Jalen is that I was built like a Dutch woman a few years ago when we played the celebrity game.
Do you know that I am very Dutch, by the way?
And with that being said,
My mom is very mad at you right now.
he's Philadelphia ride or die. His squad won. Of course, he had some beverages. He was enjoying it. He wanted to celebrate as much as he could, whether getting on TV, saying curse words, whether it's getting on stage, representing with the team. I know he's going to have some big parties with his squad.
One thing that makes me comfortable and happy is I know that I will never have to deal with this with you because the Lions will never win a Super Bowl. So there won't even be a problem. It's not even going to be a problem. But something tells me if the Lions won a Super Bowl, you wouldn't be trying to rush the stage. You'd be climbing on top of the stage. You would be all over the place.
Come on, Matt Patricia. We might have to change that pencil into a pen when you get to Detroit.
I don't know
we
if you
need
want Matt Patricia
cemented
anymore.
game plan that you ain't going to change like Nick Foles was picking the Patriots apart.
Jalen, I can only imagine how you would act if the Lions actually did win the Super Bowl. I mean, Kevin Hart was all over the internet today, and your small business can be all over the internet as well. Every day, millions of people go online and search for local businesses. When they do, does your small business show up? Guess what? When you create a website on WordPress.com, it might, because you make it easier for your customers to find you, to connect with you, to hear how you can help them. Your business needs an online home. It needs a WordPress.com website. You don't need to be a webmaster. You don't need to be a web designer to build a website for your small business. You just need WordPress, and they will guide you through the process from the very start to the very finish. They take care of all the technical stuff. It's so easy to get a website up and running. You'll be shocked. And guess what? They have a customer support team that's made up of WordPress experts eager to help you get the most from your site. And they're available, get this, 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and on the weekends. You think that's expensive, don't you? It's not. Plans start at just $4 a month for a website. And WordPress plans include a custom domain name for the life of the plan. Come see why 28% of all websites run on WordPress. You can get started today. Get an online home for your small business today with 15% off a new plan purchase. Go to WordPress.com/Jacoby to create your website and find the plan that's right for you. That's WordPress.com/Jacoby, Jacoby, and you will get 15% off your brand new website. WordPress.com/Jacoby. You build an online home for your small business. Your customers can find you. WordPress.com/Jacoby. You get 15% off a website for your business. Of course, later on, we're going to talk about the 4th and 1 play. Of course, later on, we're going to discuss the implications of Nick Foles next year and everything around the Super Bowl. But while we're on the podcast exclusive, I want to talk a little bit more about the Super Bowl watching experience. Jalen, what do you think about the ads this year? I was not impressed.
It was uniquely positioned for me because people that aren't normal football fans tune in to only see the Super Bowl a lot of times.
Yep.
It's almost like those that don't attend church go on Christmas or go on Easter.
Yep.
And so the commercials and the advertisement and what's going on at halftime becomes like a major conversation piece socially as well. This year, the game was phenomenal. Everything else,
Like, I thought Peter Dinklage rapping to Busta Rhymes was like a nice sight gag, but beyond that, I thought the Tide thing was kind of cool from like a coercive, intelligent standpoint, but there was no Super Bowl ad that I laughed at.
And I'm not mad at Eli and Odell getting their checks, but come on now.
Oh, I liked it. You're a little old school. I liked it. I thought that was funny. I thought that was really funny. You're obviously not. Have you ever seen Dirty Dancing?
I saw it years ago.
You must have seen Dirty Dancing. Did you recognize that as the Dirty Dancing sequence?
I did recognize it. It was acknowledged. It was discussed, but I just thought it was ho-hum. I
thought it was funny. But again, like the whole commercial experiences, which is something that I'd never ever watch a game and say, oh, I don't need to fast forward. I need to fast forward through these commercials. Every single time I need to fast forward through the commercials. But during the Super Bowl, when I paused the game, I actually watched the commercials and fast forward through timeouts and in between snaps and such. And I found it to be underwhelming. Also underwhelming, Justin Timberlake. Yeah, you got a lot of hits. You know what I mean? Like, I recognize every single song that you played. You've got a great catalog, but you basically just kind of walked from one presentation to another. Oh, now I'm backed by a rock band. Now I'm backed by a classic, like a sort of a marching band. Now I'm not backed by anybody, but didn't really bring out too many people. Didn't have any sort of, moment that I felt was going to sort of resonate and cut through. There was nothing from the game that I wanted to see again today that didn't happen on the field. Isn't that fair to say?
Fans can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I'm hearing, he and Prince didn't necessarily see eye to eye. In particular, once Justin dropped the song, I'm Bringing Sexy Back, because Prince retorted, Sexy Has Never Left. And for what I understand, that there was a couple of songs that were made back and forth that were almost subliminals / sneak disses. So initially, when Justin talked about, or when it was reported that he probably would do a hologram of Prince, so many people were upset about it. I saw that Sheila E. made sure that she acknowledged that Prince didn't like holograms. He would not appreciate being used as one. Allegedly, she sat down with him also and confirmed that there was not going to be one. And allegedly, the rumors of him using one were being overblown. So for him to give a tribute to Prince in Minneapolis, I understood that many of the people that were in the dome probably didn't understand the dynamics of their relationship. But I felt like that was a little bit of a force to the performance as well.
Oh, I think you got to do a Prince thing in Minneapolis. I think whether it's Lil Pump or whether it's Tom Petty or whoever, rest in peace Tom Petty, or whoever's performing, you got to do a nod to Prince in Minneapolis. I didn't think the tribute to Prince was either too much or too little. I thought it was fine. You know what I mean? But I found the performance underwhelming. The best thing about the performance was the sneakers. That was really the only fly thing about it.
The best thing about his performance to me were a couple of things. You acknowledge that as an artist, it almost is like as an entertainer. Sometimes you can be all over the place and you don't seem like you're owning something. So I found myself trying to figure, is this pop? Is this R&B? And I know you don't categorize music like you don't want to categorize athletes in certain positions, but it just felt like he was doing so many things that I couldn't really just enjoy what he hoped to get accomplished. And what it really made me think is he need to give Timbaland and Missy another check.
Why's that?
Because a lot of the songs that were hits that he were playing were songs that they produced.
Yes.
And it was their sound.
Yes, and I was thinking he needs to give Britney Spears a check because his hottest record is about Britney. Cry Me a River, in my opinion, that's his hottest record. To me, that's just my subjective opinion, and it's about Britney Spears cheating on him with a dancer. That's basically what it is. You know?
And I'm a huge Justin Timberlake fan. I'm glad he got the opportunity, but I'm also glad fans made sure that they shouted Janet Jackson yesterday, who, along with Justin, became a part of one of the more unique, revealing scenarios on stage, yet he got a chance to be welcomed back, and she didn't.
It's interesting. Well, I think he's a little bit more relevant of a performer at this point, you know? And another thing that got me thinking is like, so he's putting out an album and something, you know, hundreds, like 111 million people watch, right? And he's putting out an album and he gets paid for the performance. It just seems like things are working out well for Justin Timberlake. You know what else things are working out well for? Brand Jordan. So for those of you that aren't too deep in the sneaker game, he wore with Jordan 3s. It's just, you know, it's a classic Michael Jordan sneaker, and this particular version is called the Tinker because Tinker Hatfield, the designer of the Jordans, this is one of his original concepts for the Jordans 3, which involved the swoosh. And they took the swoosh off. So he's wearing some exclusive kicks. They just so happened to go on sale last night, and they just so happened to sell out immediately. So Brand Jordan doesn't have to spend the millions and millions of dollars to get an ad. They just got to give, you know, Justin Timberlake some advanced sneakers, and next thing you know, they're selling out.
This is why the NFL understands that stage is so large that we can actually get someone to A, perform for free, and or B, get greedy and have somebody pay us to perform based on exactly what you just said.
Exactly, but I'm sure that he got paid very handsomely for that performance because that's just how the game works. The NFL has the budget for the halftime show. That was expensive because I was also looking at sometimes, like, they lit up Minneapolis for that. They only used that shot for like 5 seconds with the Prince symbol. And I was looking down at some of those, like, you know, shots from the ceiling of the dome. And they got like 150 backup dancers. And some of the backup dancers are unnecessary. You know? Like, they got a backup dancer on the goal line when he's performing on like the 50-yard line. Like, that just seems unnecessary. It just seems like overkill to me. But obviously, the game was the most important thing about this. So, Jalen, Nick Foles, backup quarterback, considering retiring. Apparently went on a camping trip with his brother-in-law. Good for him having a good relationship with his brother-in-law. Decides to come back to professional football and is now the Super Bowl MVP. Plays the game of his life on the biggest stage. But you got to look at it and say, if you're the Eagles, what do you do now that you have two quarterbacks that could and should be your starting quarterback? One, the MVP of the league, potentially, and one, the MVP of the Super Bowl.
In a league where both guys are making $7 million, and after winning the Super Bowl, the Baltimore Ravens gave Joe Flacco $120 million to play quarterback under center, I say you keep him.
I say the same thing.
Because there is conversation that Wentz won't be ready for the start of the year, and even if he is, it's never a bad thing to have two quality quarterbacks at that position, which is designated the most important one in football. It's a strength that they should continue to foster, not make it a weakness.
I absolutely agree. I think that money obviously, you know, has a lot to do with it. They are basically getting two starting level quarterbacks for the price of one, and they continue to do so. You can make an argument with teams out there that are desperate for someone at the quarterback position, would give away draft picks and all-pro players, and they would give away more players to bolster that Eagles, you know, roster even more than they already have. But they've got, what, Nate Sedfeld is the backup? Like, what happens if Carson Wentz goes down again? Wouldn't you love to have Nick Foles there? And it just seems to me that they should not move Nick Foles under any circumstances until they are absolutely certain that Carson Wentz is available and has played a full season and is back to that MVP level that he was.
And also, too, there are times when you afford yourself the opportunity to bust your arm, to pat yourself on the back. And this was a brilliant move by Doug Peterson and Philly to actually have Nick in the fold to be put in a position to come in for Wentz when other teams were overlooking him.
Yep.
And then he wins Super Bowl MVP. You don't turn around and trade him unless somebody's going to give you a deal that you just can't turn down.
Absolutely. And I think that after Foles' experience in the Rams last year, no one was looking at him as an MVP quarterback. No one's looking at him as he's going to be Super Bowl MVP. It's just one of those wrinkles, another one of those storylines that make this game so great and memorable. On the negative side, another storyline I want to discuss, which is often overlooked because it happened early in the game, is the Brandon Cooks concussion. Again, another wide open Patriots receiver. He had so much space around him in the secondary that he caught the ball. He observed the player in front of him about 10 yards away. He observed the player behind him approaching him about 7 yards away. He had 270 degrees of the field covered. He swiveled his head just that much to figure out how he could get the most yards out of the play. However, directly behind him in that 190 degrees of space that he did not cover was, I believe, Malcolm Jenkins, who came in with a legal and hard hit. And when you saw Brandon Cooks on the ground and he wasn't moving, you knew he wasn't going to re-enter that ball game. And that changed everything the Patriots were doing on offense. How do you think that impacted the game moving forward?
Well, here's a storyline I'm not going to allow people to run with. All of the reasons why the Patriots lost. They got beat, which is a totally different thing. And so, yes, they lost Brandon Cooks. I understand Malcolm Butler didn't play. The couple of touchdown catches were controversial by Clemens and Ertz.
Not really, though. They're touchdowns.
The Philadelphia Eagles flat out beat the Pats. And the play with Brandon Cooks when he got injured, I promise you, this is exactly why by no means was it my choice, because I wasn't good enough, didn't want to play football really long. Because in street football, that used to happen all the time to everybody. Because you don't have the field generalship of a professional or somebody that does it all of the time, and you lose your bearings in counting the people that are on the field. This is what makes Stephon Diggs' catch for Minnesota so spectacular that he was able to turn it up and take it in for 6 versus going out of bounds, because he understood clock, but more importantly, he understood the bodies on the field and where they were.
Exactly.
Brandon Cooks lost that for a second and got stretched out.
Another thing I don't want people to run with is this. Rob Gronkowski just lost the Super Bowl. He had a great game. I mean, he established his, once again, dominance at the tight end position as one of the best players on the field that's not a quarterback. And then they asked him after the game if he's going to continue to play football, if he's contemplating retirement, and he says, I'll reevaluate and decide next season. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he just lost a game. You could ask me after you show up late and don't prepare, derail the topics, and you said, are you going to come and do the show tomorrow? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to go home and reevaluate and see if I'm going to do the show tomorrow. I'm not going to look too much into this. What do you think about his comments about the future of his career?
Gronk not going to retire, but it is, I guess, interesting in the landscape of sports to see the Patriots win the Super Bowl last year without Cooks and Gronk being on the field, yet start the game with both of them yesterday and still lose the game. They haven't won a Super Bowl with Gronk on the field, which is an outstanding fact. But how about this? If I'm the Pats, for the cap number that he's going to want in a couple of years and the injury history that he has, I'm looking to trade Gronk.
Jalen Rose, you're going to go on wax and say right now the Pats should look to trade the greatest tight end in the history of football.
Well, that's your opinion. He's not the greatest tight end in the history of football. He probably has some of the best statistics. He probably is the best freak of nature at the position. But look around the landscape of the league. There are players putting up Gronk numbers.
I know that.
You ever heard of Travis Kelce?
You don't have to tell me about other tight ends that are good. I understand. I understand. But you, as a Patriots, you got lost in the sauce. You would trade Rob Gronkowski if you were the New England Patriots.
How many concussions are you allowed to get?
Unlimited.
Okay. He's had a couple. Mm-hmm. He's had a couple of injuries.
Yep.
As well.
I think every extremity has been injured at some point. Yep.
Tom Brady isn't getting any younger, though he threw for over 500 yards. They clearly need to build out the defensive side of their roster that just got shredded. They're going to lose Malcolm Butler. Hightower was out. He was unhappy with Butler not playing. He's probably going to be out. They're going to lose their defensive coordinator to the Lions. They're going to lose their offensive coordinator to the Colts. This is the time you got to remix your squad. I'm trying to tell you. Not saying that he isn't a great player. He's no John Mackey. But I will say this. I would consider trading Gronk if somebody's going to give me one of those RG3 type deals.
Interesting. Well, remember where you heard it first here on Jalen and Jacoby. Now, I want to talk to you about your viewing experience. Where were you? How was it? How many people were there? What were the food and beverages of choice?
My viewing experience was the most unique in watching Super Bowls in the history of my 45 years. Growing up, before the NFL instituted a bye week, my birthday party basically always fell on Super Bowl weekend. My birthday's January 30th.
Yep.
So therefore, it was always masqueraded like, hi, it's your party, but it was really the Super Bowl party.
Yeah, of course. No one's paying attention to you. Everyone's just watching TV. Maybe that's why you want to do your birthday so big now. That's why you want to do your birthday so big now. I understand now. You're just making up for lost time.
And so yesterday, actually, I got off work in Los Angeles, got on a plane right when they kicked off. Watched the entire thing from the airplane. Every snap, red wine, Tito's and lime. Oh, I was chilling. Got a chance to eat good.
So you watched the entire Super Bowl from 30,000 feet?
No question about it.
Weren't you worried about, because we all watch TV on planes, you know the live TV on planes sometimes goes out. Weren't you worried about going out for a while? A little turbulence or something?
I was worried about it going out. It did go out for like a minute and a half, in which the entire plane freaked out, and rightfully so. But it didn't hurt my viewing experience at all because it was an amazing game. Again, most yards given up, yards.
I have to say
it was beautiful theater.
I'm going to say that is probably the best way to enjoy the Super Bowl, and here's why. Zero distractions. You got headphones on. You can't hear other people talking or other people chiming in, and you've got food. You've got someone literally waiting on you. You don't get out of your chair. There's someone literally waiting on you. I'm going to say booking a flight during the Super Bowl is a huge boss move. You got to be sitting in first, though. You got to be sitting in first to get the full Super Bowl experience. Because what I do is I've got 3 little rugrats running around the house. So they always open the door and they want to come watch and they want to get up on the bed and they want to grab, try to drink my beer and do whatever. So I get distracted a lot. You don't get distracted when you're on the plane. Next time, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fly to China next Super Bowl. And then when I get there, I'm going to get another plane and fly back. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Boss move, Jalen Rose. I like it. Back to the field of play. I think that Doug Peterson is being celebrated so much now, as he should be. And there was one thing I heard in the post game, which they quoted as saying, 9 years ago he was coaching high school. Jalen, 9 years ago he was coaching high school football. And now he is hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, celebrated as one of the greatest football minds, which just tells me, at his age, I'm just going to throw a guess. He's probably, 49? Maybe 45? He's older than you, right? So at 40 years old, he was coaching high school football. Do you think if you pulled him over and said, before you're 50, you're going to be the Super Bowl champion you're going to be the Super Bowl champion, but when you're 50 years old, he's now 50. Can you imagine that? I love that story so much.
I do too. And it also speaks to the fact that Andy Reid has a legit successful coaching tree currently taking place in the NFL.
That's fair. Your team is the Detroit Lions. The rumored new head coach of the Detroit Lions was coaching in the Super Bowl yesterday, but he was on the wrong side of history because Matt Patricia, your new head coach, was the brain behind the defense of the New England Patriots that got absolutely lit up. As a Lions fan, are you a little concerned?
I am a little concerned. I am wishing him well, and as you acknowledge, I'm a Lions fan. But here's the line you always tell. It's a copycat league when you're successful. So when you're a part of the Spurs or a part of the Pats, people are going to hire individuals from your coaching tree, and rightfully so.
Of course.
Front office as well.
It's a compliment.
And sometimes you hope that they're getting hired because they actually get an opportunity to do a really good job, not just they got hired because they were in a high-profile position on a successful team. And to double down on what you said, yes, it was the defense was his brainchild, but it was also one of Bill Belichick. So when you put it in that context, You hope now, coming to Detroit, he understands his ways and the things that he did that caused this team to come up short. Because the last time I checked, the Eagles play in what conference?
The NFC, sir.
Oh, that's the same conference the Lions play in.
Yes, they do.
So it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to continue to foster a defense that showed flashes, but really hasn't had the playoff level Super Bowl glory that a fan like myself hope that we can attain one day.
Overshadowed by Sunday's historic, entertaining Super Bowl was Saturday's complete domination of the Cleveland Cavaliers by the Houston Rockets. Jalen Rose, you were doing countdown for that game. You said that the Cavs have quit on LeBron James. What exactly do you mean by that?
And really, when you're an iconic figure like LeBron, these type of things actually take place in sports where so much is asked of him. Points, rebounds, assists, leadership, be the face of the franchise, be the person that helps foster an atmosphere of success.
Sure.
Help us achieve our goals.
Help us bring in free agents.
He's the person, correct, that when you say he's on the team, he got a rite of passage. They're going to win the East. Now you look a little deeper into the squad. They've gotten older. They've gotten slower. They can't protect the rim. It's an expensive roster. So many guys that they brought in from that either were on the team last year or the last couple, like Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, aren't performing the way you'd hope. Iman Shumpert has been injured. You bring in Isaiah Thomas and Crowder. They don't approximate what Kyrie Irving was able to bring to the table in any way, shape, or form. Oh, and by the way, Mr. Irving is balling in Boston, and they're the number 1 seed in the East. They now look like a team that's defeated. LeBron James look like a champion that's fatigued, that's unhappy running with this squad, that doesn't have enthusiasm, that doesn't have a sense of urgency that they play with on a nightly basis.
In that game,
this is a chance for the Eastern Conference to be up for grabs.
In that game, LeBron James had 11 points on 3 for 10 shooting. But aside from the numbers, he looked disinterested. He looked upset. He looked frustrated. And you say that the team quit on LeBron when it also kind of felt like LeBron quit on the team. Is that fair to say?
I understand why you would go there, but there's a level of frustration. And I knew it at the end of the first quarter when he got the rebound and threw the ball the other way. That he was just really upset.
We'll be back tomorrow on Jalen Jacoby on ESPN2 at 2 p.m. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast. We'll be back tomorrow.
Thank you. You're far too kind.